So I think that everyone is aware by now, pretty much, that FromSoftware is working on a new title, and a lot of people believe for it to be Dark Souls related to, based on some evidence that we're going to be taking a look into a little while. I just want to add my little research to it, my point of view, and some little clarifications that I would like for you guys to have into account before we start making assumptions, because this is all going to be based on assumptions until we have something concise, clear, and official. All of this is just going to be of assumptions based on the information that we have out there, and probably you're going to find my inputs and some of the evidence that I'm about to show you right now interesting, so that you have a little bit more hope on this being Dark Souls 3 remaster, or even, and this is where I like to make a huge emphasis, this could also possibly be Dark Souls 4. So basically the gist of everything is that it has been now found that FromSoftware is working on a title codename FMC. The real interesting about this right in here is that we have a list of the codenames of the projects that they have used in the past, and they heavily resemble two specific franchises, that is Dark Souls and also Armored Core. But the only thing that we have going on right in here is that they start with an F. However, it is important to note that the rest of the code names that they have for the rest of the games are very, very different than the ones that we have right in here with this specific code name. So we wouldn't rule out Armored Core. However, one thing that they do want to, that we have to point out, is stuff like this. As for Dark Souls, it is well known that Hideaki Miyazaki is not interested in creating another entry in the series. Taking that into account, the most plausible scenario is that FMC is a remake or remaster of one of the existing entries. Given that the first two games have already received a remaster version, perhaps it's time for a remaster of Dark Souls 3. It's worth mentioning here that Nick Vega, co-host of the Xbox Era podcast, reported last year, according to his sources, Dark Souls 3 remaster is in development. The whole thing on this not being like one of the already announced titles, the Dustbloods, is that this is a game that's being described as multi-platform with the codename branding that they have found. Dustblood, it's a single platform. It's going to be coming to Nintendo Switch. One thing that I do want to point out in here and emphasize is that I have seen endless articles supporting this idea on Dark Souls being completely gone forever. We have one of those small articles right in here. The series creator Hideaki Miyazaki previously told GameSpot he considered Dark Souls 3 to be the big closure on the series, but would this rule out a remaster? Like, everyone out there is saying that this could not possibly be Dark Souls 4. And that is based on some statements and interviews that Miyazaki did say in the past, but were heavily misinterpreted, and it's just that they are just completely not true. This is my input that I wanted to add into the picture, that I wanted for you to have this into consideration, to have possibly Dark Souls 4 on the table. It is true that 1 year ago one dude was saying that his sources told him that there was a Dark Souls 3 remaster on the works, but it's not necessarily true that we're not going to ever have a new entry on the actual franchise. It's been about almost 10 years that I managed to dig out from the depths of the internet this interview that I'm about to present to you right now, where we actually have his clear intentions without actual bias and people convoluting everything that Miyazaki was saying. But essentially, there are currently no plans for any sequels, spin-offs, or tie-ins, but I can't say with certainty that the chances are 0%. For example, if a developer at FromSoftware approached me in 5 years, little parenthesis in here, it's been almost 10 years from this interview, and said, please let me make another Dark Souls game, I wouldn't rule out the possibility of my team working on a new project. The reality is that for me, Dark Souls is over. And that is, of course, a sad reality. Like, Miyazaki did say that he wanted to move on to new projects, but he never actually left Dark Souls on itself behind. Now, from that time, we already have a whole bunch of titles outside from the Dark Souls franchise that are very much pretty much a Soulslike, and a Soulslike from the masters of the Soulslike genre, the makers of the Soulslike genre. We have Elden Ring, which is one of the most huge historical games out there in the history of gaming. Everyone loves Elden Ring because of how grandeur and how big and beautiful it is. But we are forgetting that the Elden Ring, it's basically Dark Souls 4. it's basically Dark Souls an open world with a different lore, but all of the weapons, all of the animations, all of the spells that you have from previous Souls, like there's rarely anything new on when it comes to actual weapons. Most of what made Elden Ring great is because they actually used stuff from the previous franchises and they slotted it into Elden Ring. A lot of people say that Sekiro is not a Souls-like. It's a game made by FromSoftware and it resembles many of the core mechanics, but the fact that you can see many of the animations, and I do not say one, you have many of the animations for the weapon arts and the weapon skills that you acquire on Sekiro, and you have them in Elden Ring, and you use them the same way that you would use them on Sekiro. It's just basically because the core mechanics of the gameplay function the same way, because Elden Ring is just a massive mashup of everything that they have learned in the past while developing games, and they made it into a huge grand superstar video game. We have strong evidence that this could possibly be a Dark Souls 3 remaster, but it also, nothing of this rules out the possibility of it being a possible new entry into the franchise. It wouldn't be the first time that the team from Miyazaki's studio, one of the teams that he considers to be his subordinates, to make a Dark Souls game. Dark Souls 2 is very hated because of some aspects. The only quarrels that I have with Dark Souls 2 is adaptability and the fact that the level design doesn't make that much sense, but the actual level, the interconnection doesn't make that much sense with those iron castles being on top of the earth and peak and having wars down on caves under the sea, so it really makes no sense, but the actual level design, it's pretty amazing. The Peak of the Archdragons is one of my favorite levels in the entirety of the franchise. My favorite hub in the entirety of the Dark Souls franchise is Majula. So yeah, I mean, I love Dark Souls 2 despite not many people doing so, and it would be like a bad idea having Miyazaki's team that made Dark Souls 2 learn from their mistakes when they develop a new Dark Souls 4, which could definitely possibly be a possibility. And while it is true that Miyazaki said that he does not want to make any more Dark Souls, and that for now at the very least we know that he's the one making Dustplots and that's the thing that he's working on, it wouldn't necessarily mean that we're not going to have like a new entry into the Dark Souls franchise, and this could possibly, even if this is Dark Souls 3 remaster, this could just possibly lay the foundation for the team that is actually going to be developing the new Dark Souls game. Anyways, let me know what you guys think down in the comment section down below. If you like the content, like and never super appreciate it. Don't you the gorgeous and beautiful person. You're indeed a gorgeous and beautiful person. Subscribe to the channel, join Discord. Have a beautiful day and goodbye.